Seijo. So let's get started the video. Japan aims to expose, myths, and explore the reality of modern Japan by considering its history, economy, politics, and culture. Japan is arguably the most successful industrial economy, combining almost unprecedented affluence with social stability and apparent harmony. This is one of their famous literature. Musashi Shikibu, the author of the Tale of Genji. The Tale of Genji, written in early 11th century by female courtier Musashi Shikibu, is considered the permanent Nobel of Heian fiction. Another notable piece of fictional Japanese literature was Konjaki Monogatari Shu, a collection of over 1,000 stories in 31 volumes. The volumes cover values from China, India, and Japan.
Matsuo Basho, 1644-1694. In the 17th century, recognized as the greatest master of haiku, then called Hoku. His poems were influenced by first-hand experience of the world around him, often encapsulating the feeling of seeing in a few simple elements. He made his life's work the transformation of haikai into literary genre. For Basho, haikai involved a combination of comic playfulness and spiritual depth, ascetic practice and involvement in human society in particular. Basho wrote Oku no Horusomichi, a major work in the form of travel diary and considered one of the major texts of classical Japanese literature. Mori Ogai and Natsume Soseki, Meiji in Taisho and early Showa period literature, 1868-1945. Natsume Soseki's 1867-1916. Humorous novel Wagahai wa Neko de Ar, I Am a Cat, in 1905, employed the cat as the narrator. And he also wrote the famous Botchan in 1906 and Kokoro in 1914. Natsume Mori Ogai and Shigen Naoya was called so-called God of Novel in the most prominent novel writers. Were instrumental in adopting and adapting Western literary conventions and techniques.
Philippine literature reflects a diverse group of works that are mostly grounded on traditional folktales, socio-political histories, and real-life experiences. Such books have since promoted Filipino cultural values, told the daily struggles of locals, and have instilled a remarkable lesson or two. No limitang Repe Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Realonda, or to be called as Dr. Jose Rizal, published 1887. His novel sparked the social awakening of Filipinos during the Spanish colonial era. As Rizal cannot fathom the unfairness of the Spanish priests and the ruling government at the time, his purpose in writing the book was to expose the ills of the Philippine society at the time. In the revolutionary book, you learn about the story of Crisostomo Ibarra, how he dealt with Spanish authorities, and how he prepared for his revenge, as told Rizal's second book, El Filibusterismo. Banag at Sikat by Loki Santos, published 1906. Banag at Sikat, From Early Dawn to Full Light, has been dubbed the Bible of the Filipino working class, being among the earliest novels written by Loki Santos. It's considered by Philippine critic Teodoro Agoncillo as one of the most important books in Philippine literature in 1949. The novel narrates the story between Delphine and Felipe, who have contrasting views. Delphine is a socialist, whereas Felipe, despite being the son of a rich landowner, leans toward anarchism. Throughout the narrative, themes of love, livelihood, and societal status are embedded. Dekada 70 by Luwalhati Bautista, published 1983. The Marcos era in the 70s is a dark chapter in Philippine history. No one dares to speak against the government for fear of execution. In some cases, bodies are not even retrieved. Hence, it has been a tumultuous period, especially for the Filipino parents to protect their kids from the oppressive regime at the same time. Stand together as one family. The novel tells the story of lead protagonist Amanda Bartolome and her family, where she had to deal with facing the law and her responsibilities toward her 5 sons.
안녕하세요. 저는 아침 제일 유명 아지안 장애들연입니다. 대한민국을 대표하는 South Korea. South Korea's modern history is marked by turbulent changes that have shaped its national side from Japanese occupation to the Korean War, which tore the national apart, and the democratic uprising of 1980s. Those national events have shaped a generation of writers. The first famous literature in South Korea is The Cloud Dream of the Nine, written by Kim Man-jung. It's a 17th century Korean novel set in the Chinese Tang Dynasty. The latter is one of the most prominent novels of the traditional Korea. It is said that Kim wrote The Cloud Dream of the Nine during his second exile. It has been called one of the most beloved masterpieces in Korean literature. It was the first literary work from Korea to be translated into English by James Scott Gale in 1922. The second famous literature is Yongbie Chonga, literally means Songs of the Dragons Flying to the Heaven, and was the first work written in Hangul. The book was published in 1447 and written by Jaeyoung Inji. The book was written on the Joseon dynasty and its ancestral heritage. Today, the songs provide insights into the development of Joseon, the Korean people, and even the history of neighboring ethnicities in North Asia, such as the Jurchen people who would later establish the Qing dynasty in China. The third famous literature in South Korea is Gasa or Kasa, was a form of poetry during the Joseon dynasty in Korea. Gasas were commonly sung and were popular among Yangban women. Jung Chul, a poet of the 60th century, is regarded as being perfected the form, which consisted of parallel lines, each broken into 2 or 4 syllables units. The form first emerged during the Goryeo period. In modern Korea, the word is also synonymous with the lyrics of a song in the context of modern music, and its etymology is shared by Japanese and Chinese. The famous poet in this literature is Shin Saimdang, titled Dai Wal Yong Pas, means loving parents.